policy, nurse, is that I give you exclusive rights to all the news and information that I receive from the Titanic. But this will be in real time. News sent directly to New York using the latest Marconi wireless technology. It happens on the ship one day. It appears in your newspapers the next. This is the way forward, Herbst. The whole globe linked by rail, ship, and electricity.
The Legend of the R.M.S. Titanic, Part 5. March 1912. R.M.S. Titanic is receiving her final stages of adjustments before her maiden voyage, and her crew boards her for the very first time. However, many of those on board don't know she is a ticking time bomb, her fate written into her plans. But not much of safety is concerned at this point. All is cared about is getting the ship ready for service. And there's a lot to be done. Titanic had 29 boilers put in the 6 boiler rooms along the bottom of the very bottom of the ship, below the double hull. Also, the double hull was made for safety purposes, as nothing can penetrate Titanic's double hull. However, they were wrong. The boilers had 162 furnaces and had to be stoked very daily by a group of men called the Black Gang. That consists of 175 stokers and 70 trimmers, men who would bring coal from the bunkers, which were located between the boiler rooms, to the boilers themselves, and they'll be stoked into the furnaces. Titanic also had 3 electricians on board to help with the electricity system on board Titanic. The system was huge, and it had to be used to do many things. They serviced 10,000 incandescent lamps, 1,500 bells used to call stewards, 520 electric heaters, a telephone exchange of 50 lines, and uncountable passenger signs, lifts, cranes, winches, fans, workshop tools, kitchens, and pantry appliances, and navigation systems. Trust me, the electricity was a big part in Titanic. 34 engineers were put in the engine room on Titanic, where the 2 reciprocating engines for the side propellers would be used. The center propeller would be driven by a turbine. And this crew was led by one man in the engine room. That man was 51-year-old Joseph Bell. Having served on the White Star Line since 1885, he actually served on Titanic's oldest sister, R.M.S. Olympic, and he was working on R.M.S. Titanic, as he had experience with the Olympic-class liners. Titanic would be his final trip at sea. 25-year-old Frederick Barrett would be in charge of boiler room number 6 on board R.M.S. Titanic. He hadn't been experienced with sea ships, and it's unknown what actually caused him to come to the sea. What is known, though, is that before working on Titanic, he worked on a ship named New York. 24-year-old Jack Phillips was in charge of the Marconi operating set on board Titanic in the Marconi room, located on the boat deck. However, he wasn't alone in this job. A little younger than Phillips was Harold Sidney Bride. He was a junior member of the wireless crew on board Titanic, which consisted of only 2 people, Phillips and Bride. But each man would take shifts, as the wireless had to be worked 24/7. Now, let's get on to the main crew of Titanic. Most significantly, the officers of R.M.S. Titanic. The junior member of the officers on board Titanic was 24-year-old James Paul Moody. He had been in White Star service since 1911, and had served on board R.M.S. Oceanic as her 6th officer. Now he is now serving on Titanic as her 6th officer. The Titanic would be Moody's last voyage at sea, where he would see land again. Harold Lowe is the 5th officer on board R.M.S. Titanic. a 29-year-old, Lowe had to run away from home as 14 because his father wanted great business for him in the shipping business. But Lowe wanted to go to the sea, so he decided to leave home and decided to join the merchant navy. Then, in 1912, he got word that he would be part of Titanic's crew. Lowe would play a key role in the sinking of the R.M.S. Titanic. Titanic's fourth officer is Officer Joseph Groves Boxhall, age 34. Boxhall will be a key witness in both the British and American inquiries to the sinking of the Titanic. 34-year-old Herbert Pitman is the third officer on board R.M.S. Titanic. Pitman had served with White Star since 1906. However, no officer will become even more famous than Charles H. Lightoller, age 38. Lightoller was the second officer on board R.M.S. Titanic. He will be the most senior officer to survive the sinking, and would give a great testimony of what happened. Even though he wasn't on the bridge at the time, he would give an account of what happened and would be considered one of the most bravest men that night. The only Scottish officer on board Titanic was First Officer William McMaster Murdoch, age 39. Murdoch would become famous as he was on duty in charge of the bridge at the time of the Titanic's collision with the iceberg. However, his story would be quite controversial. Murdoch had actually served on board R.M.S. Olympic and was on duty at the time of the collision with HMS Hawk. However, he was at the stern section, so he didn't see much. However, he would find himself giving great testimony to the incident that would become a financial disaster for White Star. Then, he found himself on board R.M.S. Titanic as her first officer. Titanic's chief officer was Henry Tingle Wilde, and he was 39 years old. He had also served aboard R.M.S. Olympic as her chief officer, and now he would find himself on board R.M.S. Titanic. Like Moody, Murdoch, Wilde would not see land ever again. Then there's Edward John Smith, age 62. He is the captain of R.M.S. Titanic and the commodore of the White Star Line. He has captained nearly every single ship in his life with White Star, and is now looking forward for retirement after sailing on board Titanic for her maiden voyage. Smith was known as calm, cool-headed, and quite friendly. And he also never drank at sea, and he was an experienced captain. There was never an incident with a ship sinking under his command. However, in 1911, while under command of R.M.S. Olympic, Titanic's sister ship, Smith was involved in the collision with HMS Hawk. However, it was decided that it wasn't his fault for the collision, as the pilot, who was in control of Olympic at the time, was fully to blame. Captain Smith was off the hook, and now, almost a year later, he is under the command of R.M.S. Titanic. Also on board Titanic was her very own Guarantee Group. This consisted of the best men to build Titanic, and would follow her everywhere of her maiden voyage to see if anything was wrong and make improvements to the ship. Now the Guarantee Group had 9 members: William Campbell, a joiner; Roderick Chisholm, a draughtsman; Alfred Cunningham, a fitter; Anthony Frost and Robert Knight, who were also fitters; Francis Parks, a plumber; William Parr, an electrician, and Ennis Hastings as an apprentice. Electrician's apprentice to be exact. However, their leader was far more famous. The leader of the Guarantee Group was Thomas Andrews, the chief builder of Titanic. He was her designer and builder. The nephew of William Parry, the chairman of White Star, not White Star, Harold and Wolff, the company that built ships for White Star. Andrews was well respected by his team, and was proud to be on the biggest ship in the world that had built himself, that he had designed himself, along with some help from some draftsmen. Sadly, his beautiful ship will be gone, taking him and his guarantee group with him. The guarantee group does not know what's just about to happen to their brand new ship. Titanic had 3 propellers, 2 triple propellers on the sides, and 1 center quadruple propeller in the center with the rudder. This will be the driving force of R.M.S. Titanic, and her engines sounded like this. However, as I said before, some parts were cannibalized from Titanic onto Olympic because she had a collision with HMS Hawk, and when she threw a propeller blade in February 1912. This would cause disastrous consequences for her younger sister, Titanic. However, many people didn't know that one such thing that could happen to a ship did happen on Titanic. And it wasn't the iceberg. It was something even more disastrous that not even the passengers knew. However, I won't tell you that just yet, but there's some evidence that may hint what it is. This never-before-seen photo of Titanic in Belfast, Northern Ireland. Now, take a good look at this picture. Do you see something strange about Titanic? Let me know in the comment section below. However, I will tell you this. There is something in this picture that hints that something has happened deep within inside Titanic, and it will lead to her ultimate demise. So take a good look at this picture and tell me in the comments, what do you see that's a bit off about Titanic? Finally, by April 2nd, 1912, Titanic is finally completed. After 3 years of hard labor, she is ready for her main voyage. But not just yet. She has to do some couple of sea trials, and when she leaves Belfast, she'll head to Southampton, where to take out passengers, food, and many other sources for the maiden voyage. April 2nd, 1912. Titanic departs to Belfast for the final time. It will be the last time Belfast would see their beautiful ship. Thomas Andrews addresses his team of what's about to happen.
Well, gentlemen, one half of our great adventure is over. We have conceived and given birth to a mighty child. But as I see her at the quayside, I realize it is not just a ship that has backbone of steel, but the people who built her. Good luck to all of us. And God protect us.
Now, she's sailing now.
The newest, biggest passenger liner in the world conducted her sea trials. After 6 hours of sea trials, she set off for Southampton. However, there was a problem with this. Titanic had only completed half of her sea trials. It was suggested that she may have done the same. She may have been just as good as Olympic, maybe even better. So they didn't test her fully. This was a big mistake. April 5th. Titanic arrives at Southampton for the very first time. Once there, 2 main things happened. One was the lifeboat inspection by a Board of Trade official. Lifeboats. What people thought was the useless thing ever to be used on a passenger ship at the time. As I mentioned in part 2, J. Bruce Ismay had reduced the lifeboat capacity to 64 to 16, while only 4 lifeboats were later added. The 4 collapsible lifeboats to be exact. However, it didn't make no difference. Titanic was approved. Even though ships have quadrupled in the last 15 years, Titanic was still allowed to set sail with only 20 lifeboats, able to carry only half of those on board. David Blair was another key figure in the Titanic campaign. He was Titanic's original second officer. However, once at Southampton, when Chief Officer Henry Tingle Wilde joined the Titanic's crew, Captain Smith laid off David Blair. It was White Star's decision, of course. This left David Blair out of Titanic and packed up his stuff. While doing so, he accidentally packed the keys to the lockers and storing the binoculars for the lookouts. If they would have been used, it would have made a difference of what would happen next on April 15, 1912. This is the exact key that David Blair accidentally took that was supposed to be used for the binocular locker. He had made a big mistake. All these many things could have been prevented. Titanic would have done her fully sea trials, and the lifeboat capacity would have been risen up. And David Blair should have left the binocular keys. However, these did not happen. Titanic was a ticking time bomb for disaster. But that's a story for another day.